Hey everybody, welcome to the Bytes podcast. I'm your host Mace.
And I'm your co-host, Proteus.
Well, Proteus, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going pretty good. How are you doing?
Doing well myself. Just, life, work, trying to get this podcast started.
Yeah.
So,
And any time for games in there?
yeah, I try and fit it in where I can. We've actually got some footage from a game I've been playing recently on screen.
Oh, yeah.
So forgive me, Father. Not a new game, which
Yeah,
based on the way I play, I'm usually not playing the latest thing, but
yeah, I think the sequel came out pretty recently, right?
yeah, into early access. So Forgive Me
Oh,
Father
okay.
2 is currently in early access. They're expecting it to release later, like October, I believe, but we'll see how
Well,
it goes.
yeah, you never know with early access. They
Yeah, you really
sometimes
don't.
they're on time and sometimes they're a decade late, so you know.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a big frustration for me. I know this one was released into early access as well, and I mean it
Hmm.
released in a timely manner, so I'm reasonably confident that so will Forgive Me Father 2. So, I mean, we'll see. I
Yeah,
typically
but
don't like playing them before their full release.
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you don't know if it's, content complete or not, so
Exactly,
it's always a
exactly. And
challenge.
usually when I'm done with a game, I don't really come back to it. So,
Yeah, and I'd say
um,
most early access games that I've actually purchased over the years, I kind of waited until they've made the, final or official update to get it out of early access. I may play it a little bit to test it, but I don't know. For me, I don't think putting in a ton of time to an unfinished game is the
sure.
best use of time. So,
Yeah, I agree.
at least
It's
not at this stage of my life. I mean,
Yeah, well, when your
before
time
when I
is
was younger, yeah.
limited, when your time
Yeah.
is limited and your money's not, that's what I'll say. When your time is limited and your money's not. I mean,
Yeah.
our money is limited, but relative to, when you're a teenager, it's not really the
Yeah.
same. I remember as a kid, going and exchanging my Game Boy Advance cartridges because it was like, well, that's the only way I can afford a new game. So,
Yeah. For
um,
sure.
yeah, it was a totally different thing, and that's why I had over 100 hours into Golden Sun and over 100 hours into Golden Sun, The Lost Age, because
Yeah,
that I didn't
that's
have the luxury of just playing new games all the time.
yeah, and I mean back then you only had a certain number of releases of games per year, and
That's true. There are a
it
lot more
wasn't.
releases nowadays than
Oh yeah, the
there
market
ever
right
were
now is
before.
flooded, and the fact that I mean you can pay to test out a game essentially and help them develop it is cool in some ways, but it's a bit different than it used to be. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, so my opinion on the game, I'm sure you're
yeah,
curious. It's really good. I enjoy it. I'm a big fan of the boomer shooter genre. I hate that term, but that's what we have.
that's what it is.
Um,
I mean, it's just like looter shooter and anything
it's
else.
meant to
So
describe certain things. The problem I have with it is that it gets thrown around so much and has kind of lost its meaning. You say
yeah.
boomer shooter, and who knows what that actually means nowadays. But this is a 2.5D shooter, so I'm gonna
Mhm.
call it that.
Yeah, I
Um,
really like
it
the art style. I like
the
the kind of cell shaded kind of comic book look.
Yeah, the art style is one of the things that really got me interested. It's really cool. The artwork is done beautifully. So that was what got me interested in the first place.
Yeah.
I played the demo for Forgive Me Father 2 during a Steam Next Fest, and that was my
Hmm.
first exposure. And then I was like, oh, well, I wonder how the first game is, and so that's why I got it, and it's pretty good. It's got an interesting take where um, you have an upgrade system. So
Yeah.
your character does level up as you progress through the game, and you can upgrade your weapons. And those weapons actually will change in how they perform, sometimes drastically. Like there's a
Yeah.
semi-automatic uh, like assault rifle kind of thing. It's not really an assault rifle, but if you do, you have two paths you can upgrade it, and one of them turns it into a grenade launcher.
Oh
So
wow.
it can be pretty drastic, and it
Yeah.
actually
So
visually changes it too.
yeah, on this one I saw you had died. You started out with a knife? Do you have to like get a gun or
So this is the endless mode that I'm playing here. So this
Oh,
isn't the
okay.
level-based mode that you would typically play.
Yeah.
So you start out with, in this arena, you start out with your revolver, your shotgun,
Okay.
uh,
You have
the
some weapons.
Tommy gun, and then I think there's like a grease gun that you
Yeah.
also start out with.
Oh, nice.
But it's really interesting. It's definitely one that I think is worth checking out if you're into the genre. Um, if you are into the genre, you probably know who CV11 is. He plays a lot of retro shooters,
Yeah.
and um, he actually doesn't like this game.
Oh,
He
for real?
doesn't,
Wow.
yeah. All I remember him saying about it was basically he doesn't like the fact that the damage feedback is basically the same no matter what. Like you can be getting
Oh,
chunks off of your health, and the damage
yeah.
feedback is the same as if you're getting plinked by like the most basic
Oh,
zombie. Now, I
yeah.
agree with that take. The damage feedback is definitely a low point of this game. It's
Hmm.
terrible. I
Well,
didn't really notice it until I was playing this mode because I've been playing on expert difficulty and everything takes like a third off of your health anytime it
oh yeah.
touches you.
Yeah.
So I just always assume I'm taking tons of damage.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, I can understand that take. I think it's still a really good game, and yeah, I enjoy it. So how
Yeah,
about
it
you?
looks pretty
You
cool.
playing anything?
Yeah, a couple games. One of the ones that I'd kind of put off for a while, and I've actually got a good deal on it recently, was the new, well, I guess semi-new. It came out, I believe, the beginning of the year, was Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown.
Oh,
So it's a
yes. Okay.
2D, or yeah, I'd say it's 2D Metroidvania, so kind of exploration game, which was kind of taking it. I mean, Prince of Persia, I mean, started out 2D platformer, so it kind of goes back to its roots a bit after it had been in the 3D realm for decades and decades. So it it's pretty cool. It when I first started, like I heard a lot of good things from lots of different reviewers saying, "Hey, this is Prince of Persia's return to form after kind of being away for so long." Which
Yeah, I know that
you
it
know,
was
to
getting like really good reviews.
yeah, and like I loved the Prince of Persia like Sands of Time 3D games, even the kind of relaunch that they did on like PS3 360 with just Prince of Persia. That a lot of it was a very divisive game that people either loved or hated. Because of the art style was amazing. The platforming was probably a lot easier in that game because you couldn't die. I think that was the problem people had. In the old Prince of Persia
Mm,
games, you could die and sometimes die pretty graphically. But in the PS3 360 game, you had one of your like little companions that would save you. Like it was essentially dying because you had to restart from a different point, but it didn't. You didn't weren't shown dying. So some people had issue with that. The game was. I enjoyed it. It's actually probably I don't know one of the games that I had a lot of fun with on the PS3 era for Prince of Persia, but it was gone for a while. I know think they released a 2D like a remake of the original Prince of Persia with kind of like 2.5D graphics back on like Xbox 360 Arcade or something back in the day. So it's been a while. So anyways, the Lost Crown, you actually don't play as the prince. The prince gets kidnapped and you have to go rescue
Really?
the prince as one of this group called the Immortals. And so I don't know. I'm a couple hours into it. It's at first I didn't know if I was gonna like it because I think I just had high expectations based on all the review feedback, with like lots of
Oh,
different
okay.
you know outlets like IGN and some of the other YouTubers that I typically listen to. They were, they all sang praises about it. It was, across mainstream and, smaller channels and stuff. And I got into it, and I don't know. I felt like initially the combat, like the platforming was fine. Like the platforming worked really well. You got good feedback. It seemed like the jumping, the sliding, everything. You know, the wall hangs and jumping off the walls. Those all felt pretty good and balanced. I just the combat and a little bit of the graphics were kind of bothering me, to be
Yeah.
perfectly
No,
honest.
I totally get that.
I had, I guess my expectations maybe were too high because I felt like the graphics were like kind of PS3 360 level, to some degree, and I was like, "Right, this it's been a been a minute since the last game that they made, and yeah, the old ones were 3D, but I felt like the textures they did pretty low res in some areas, and it just looked very rough around the edges." And I believe Ubisoft used a much smaller studio that was in charge of this game. I'd have to look to see which one because I mean, Ubisoft has so many studios around the world
Sure. Yeah, it's
that
huge.
I don't even know which one was making it because I mean there's some studio that is still apparently working on the remake of Sands of Time. But this was I think one of the other studios, and this is kind of like a side project. But it the game, like the graphics were a little disappointing. It has a kind of comic booky art style where you have, the classic, cut-ins like portraits of people when they're talking, and they are all fully voiced. I was impressed. They were fully voiced. All the Persian people have British accents, so that stays with how it is in Sands of Time.
Yeah.
The character designs some of the hairstyles and stuff are a little too modern for my taste. It kind of takes you out of it a little bit, but that's modern Ubisoft, I
Do the
think.
girls have half-shaved heads?
Yeah, or they're either bald or there's interesting designs and some characters are
That's like the thing.
yeah, and some of the characters like proportion wise, like there's one of the guys, he's like a giant, and it's like, okay, I know he's supposed to be strong, but he's like twice the height of the main character, and he just looks like a giant, and maybe that's what they were going for, but
Well, maybe
it just
he's
kind of
just
is a little
tall
weird.
and you're vertically challenged.
Yeah, maybe that's it. But anyways, like it's fine. Like the characters are fine. I used, you start out in kind of this like prologue area where you get a little feel for the fighting, not much platforming, but you fight a boss, and then you get into the main story and you get to the level that is the main, in a Metroidvania, like the main map. So it's in this, kind of castle realm place, which I'm not gonna go into too many spoilers on it, but you're in this place that you have to explore and get through it to find the prince that was taken. And so at first the combat it just felt like the enemies were really spongy. They took so much like damage just to take them down, even like the basic enemies. And so while they have, their typical melee combat ones, your ranged ones, the guys with shields that you have to either break or get around, it just was not the first like couple hours. I was kind of debating if I wanted to keep going with it.
Really, that bad?
Yeah, it just wasn't
What?
hitting, and I was like, I'll give it a chance. And so I went back to it. Was it in the last couple days, like 2 days ago? And sat down and I was like, okay, I'm in a point where, I've seen some of the main story, like little cutscenes, and I know I need to go explore this area of the map that's a little further away. So I kept going. The platforming got a little more challenging. There was a lot more, spinning blades and, different traps that could kill you pretty easily. But I was starting to get to the point where you're like, you find places where you're like, okay, I don't have an ability to go that way. I need to go earn that ability and find it. And so once I finally got through one of the bosses on the far side of one of the maps, I gained, I got a new weapon, so a ranged one that was interesting to use, and it seemed to help with some of the enemies that seemed a little harder to take down that were further away. And I earned some of the like little power ups. They use an amulet system where you have like a number of slots for your amulets, and your amulets can augment like your health, your attack damage, and things like that. They can give you like special, regen abilities when you parry. So it has some nice systems. Like I don't know, it's satisfying when you get a good parry and do like an instant kill on certain enemies. But once I got a few more upgrades and a few more traversal abilities, it seems better and more balanced. Like I'm able to take down some of the basic enemies a little faster. So I'm gonna give it a little bit more time before, I think I'll keep
before
playing
you
it.
shelf it.
But yeah, it's at this like we talked about, we have a very limited time. So,
Yeah,
I don't have a
it's
whole lot of
it's like
like
I could be
patience
playing
for
something else right now,
yeah, it's something
and
that's more enjoyable.
it's
And it
interesting.
was
I was reading
yeah.
this somebody else on Twitter, so I was reading on Twitter earlier. It was this person who was saying, "Do you feel like you've gotten worse at video games as you've gotten older?" And a common sentiment was, "No, I haven't gotten worse, but I have gotten less patient." Where
Yes, I
I'm a
think that's
lot
the
less
thing.
willing to get good at a game.
Yeah,
If it's
I
like
get
got
that.
frustrating systems or something like that,
Hmm.
I'm done.
Well, yeah, if a game is designed to force you to take more time than's probably necessary just to pad out the game length,
Yep.
and to be perfectly honest, I think everyone knows that Ubisoft does that in all of their modern
Oh yeah,
games.
everybody knows
I
that.
mean, you
And
look at the like checklist collectathons on every single open world
mhm.
game. You look at just some of the changes to like where combat was very satisfying in like their Assassin's Creed games, and then they made it where oh well now you have to like level up to this before you can even just like kill somebody, and it's like it's in a game that you're an assassin,
So you
and
want to know my take on that?
yeah,
I don't think that's a bad thing. I
yeah,
don't think it's a bad thing to have games like that because there are
oh
people
yeah,
who enjoy it.
yeah,
And
there
that's
are, and
fine. But I wish
yeah,
more people would realize that, maybe this isn't meant for you and stop
that's
buying their
true.
games, you
That's
know?
true. I mean, that goes
There
back
wouldn't
to
be
a
so many
conversation.
games like that if people
Yeah.
if it wasn't for so many people buying them. And I really do think like Assassin's Creed, I think there's a lot of people who keep buying it because
Hmm.
they played it
Well,
when it first came out, the original,
yeah,
and they've
that's
played
one
every game
thing.
so far, and so they
Yeah.
have to. They just feel
And,
obligated to, and it's silly.
well, I think that's part of it. And I think there's a large segment of consumers and, game consumers that they only have time for one or two games in a year. So they'll buy Assassin's Creed and they may buy, Madden or Call of Duty, and they will play that. And so, for a studio like Ubisoft, they're like, well, we want to sell them the game, and we want them to keep playing it because, like, they're scored on a lot of like how many people are playing this game and like player counts.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
they'll say, hey, we released
Terrible metric
Assassin's
anyway.
Creed. Yeah, but it's something that's part of the industry at the moment. And
Oh
so,
yes.
when they released Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it's been what 3 years ago already? I don't know, maybe even more. Um,
Uh, yeah, it's
when
been
did
a
that one come
while,
out?
at least 3 years, I'm pretty sure. For
Yeah, and even
Valhalla?
and then after Odyssey, which that one's even older. I mean, several years.
Yeah.
They kept putting content. Like it was, I didn't finish Odyssey, and I don't know if I may finish the story. Like I was playing it and I was liking it, but they kept adding so many quests and like extra content that I was like, I don't want to just dedicate my game time to one game. But
Yep.
there were people that were, and that's the thing. Like for them, they bought Assassin's Creed Odyssey or Valhalla, and they were just playing that. And then maybe they switched to Call of Duty when in October, November, whenever that released. But
Yeah.
for them, like that's a good value. Like I think that's a great value proposition for certain game consumers, not for
Yes.
everyone.
Well,
I mean,
I'm
yeah,
trying to remember. I think it was Yahtzee Crenshaw.
yeah.
Uh, he was talking about like, oh, no, 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 no. It was Circle Tune.
Oh, Circle Team,
He
yeah,
he was talking about how long games are great when you're a teenager and you have all of this time, but then
yeah.
when you're an adult
You don't.
and
So
you don't have that time, then it's
yeah.
like, okay, well, I just want something I can play through and enjoy and
Hmm.
move on. But, that's the
Yeah,
thing, right? It's they go developers will go or publishers more accurately will go where the
yeah,
money is.
yeah. They
And
will,
the
and to
money right
be
now is in these games that just drag on forever.
yeah, it's the kind of endless either live service model or the endless like single player game that just has so much content that you just keep playing it because you want to unlock more and more. But like with Prince of Persia, um, for Ubisoft to actually have a studio go back and make a, you know, 2D Metroidvania that is only, I believe it's a 20 hours or less to like fully complete it. That's kind of a big deal. I think like that they actually
Yeah, it's a
went
huge
back
deal.
to an IP that they hadn't used in a while. Instead of just coasting on making more Assassin's Creed games, they went back to Prince of Persia, which, Assassin's Creed was, that was started because they were prototyping Prince of Persia games. Like I believe that's how the first Assassin's Creed came about, was that they were trying to make a new Prince of Persia, and they ended up doing Assassin's Creed instead. But to make the Lost Crown, it's one that I think they're releasing an update or a DLC for it at the end of the year. But they said that's like the only one. It seems like a right now it seems like a decent Metroidvania, and I like Metroidvanias. It's been a while since I've really got sucked into one.
Sure.
Honestly, I think the last one was the last kind of modern one, not going back and playing either actual Metroid or Castlevania, would probably be Shadow Complex. Do you remember that one?
No, I don't remember that one.
That one was a Epic Games developed one that was 2.5D.
Back when they made
It
games.
Yes, and it was an exclusive on Xbox Live Arcade, if I remember correctly, for a while. They did do a re-release, about in the last 5 years, maybe, because it came out, I think, like 2009 or 2010. And they did re-release it in the modern era, where you can get it on PS4 and above, essentially. But that one was made by Epic, and it was written by Orson Scott Card of Ender's Game fame,
Oh yeah, okay. I know.
and all that.
Familiar.
And so it was voiced. The main character was voiced by Nolan North of
Really?
Uncharted fame. Yes, it was very interesting. It was a fun one. I want to go back and actually play the remastered version, because I know it was pretty. It's an older game. It showed its age on Xbox 360. So, or if you go back and play it, because it was a 360 game. But
Yeah, sure.
that was like one of the last like modern, like newer Metroidvanias I played. So to be back into this one, which I want to go and play stuff like I've been told I need to go play Hollow Knight, which is
Yeah,
also another
same.
Metroidvania. I've been told
Same.
by several people that I need to play that one, which
Yeah.
it's like three of my really close friends over the years are just like, you need to play this game. So at
Yeah,
some
I
point
mean,
I'll go
people
back to
love
it.
it. It's
Yeah,
it is a beloved game. I haven't played it either.
yeah.
Um, but I have been
It's
also
on
been
it's on
told that
my
I need to play. Actually, that's
it's on
not
my
true.
list.
Um,
Yeah,
our brother-in-law,
yeah,
um, he had me play a little bit of it once,
a
and
little
yeah,
bit.
I mean, it feels good. It's a good
Yeah,
feeling game, and it's a Metroidvania in every sense of the word.
yeah. So
Um, Yeah, I
yeah,
personally, the art style doesn't do a lot for me. I think it is a good art style. I think it has great
for Hollow
artistic
Knight.
direction.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it has great artistic direction. It just doesn't do anything for me.
Hmm. Yeah, and there's certain people that really like that kind of. I don't know, that grim, because it's very
Yes.
dark
It's
and
so
it's kind of
dark.
cartoony, but it's super dark. Like it's cool. I respect it. I mean, Prince of Persia, that one I was disappointed by the art because I expected more because it's like they have some
I
really
just don't
cool
understand what
looking.
happened with that one, to be
Yeah,
honest. I
because
think it
they have
looks
some.
bad.
Yeah, well, the in-game stuff, like the character art looks cool, and I was like, why couldn't you translate that to the character models instead of this like halfway? Like they did it partially, and it just
Hmm.
doesn't look as cohesive, I think, as it could. But I'll keep playing it for the
Yeah.
interim. But
Yeah,
besides
you'll have to let
that,
me know what you think farther in. I do find, and
yeah,
I will say this, on Forgive Me Father, right?
yeah,
Is I find that a lot of games don't really hit their stride until you're at least a good 50% of the way through. At least.
yeah,
Sometimes more. And that's the frustrating thing is it's like, well, how long do you have to play it before it gets good? I
yeah. Because people
remember
are like,
this
oh, just put
argument.
in
Oh,
20 hours or 40.
I remember this argument going around about Diablo 4 where it was
Oh,
like, "Oh, well, you didn't play 30 hours of it, so, you didn't get off Tutorial Island." And it's like I shouldn't have to play a game for 30 hours to know if it's good or not. That's
yes,
dumb.
I
It just
agree.
makes no
I
sense.
Yeah,
If it
I don't like that argument of, oh, it gets good after 40 hours. That's what
so so what you're
yeah.
telling me is you have so little respect for your own time that you're willing to be bored for 30 hours for a game to get good, when you could just
Yeah.
go play something else.
Yeah. No, exactly. If a game at this point doesn't respect my time, then I'm like I just don't have time for the game. Like
Yep.
I can go I can go
Howlongtobeat.com.
watch yeah, I can go
If
watch somebody else play the good parts, I guess.
Yeah, I'll go
Uh,
do howlongtobeat.com, and if I see that a
yeah.
game is like this is like a 40 plus hour game, unless I
Yeah.
am really interested in the game,
Yeah.
I don't even bother.
Yeah, and that's I mean, we've talked about this before, but I mean that's the only game right now that I am that invested in is Persona 3 Reload, which I have been
Yeah.
playing this year. I'm about halfway through, I believe,
How
but
many
I am
hours
in
deep are you? Do
about
you know?
40. Yeah,
40 hours and you're halfway done.
yeah,
That's why I haven't
yeah,
gotten into Persona. I am so interested in it, but I'm
yeah.
just like, man,
Oh
that is
man, this new one, I
so
think
long.
honestly, yeah, the new one is so much more streamlined and a much easier one to play than the like Persona 3 FES on PlayStation 2 or even the PSP version, Persona 3 Portable. That's one. I mean, I've taken a break from that honestly. The last it's been almost a month. I think June was the last time I played,
You
just
just
because.
needed to play something else.
Well, I there was just a lot coming out, and I wanted to try some other stuff, and
Yes.
I got to be in the mood, and because it's an investment. It's a very story heavy, and then having to just like the combat. I mean, I love the combat. It's probably my favorite turn-based RPG combat system in the modern and even not so modern era. But it's I don't know. It's great. I will be going back to it. I'm gonna finish it because I'm trying to go for 100% run on it in one go, if possible. I think it is possible. I'm at 50% of all the achievements on it. So
Woo!
um,
That's that's tough, man. Like
yeah,
most of my games that I've 100%ed,
yeah,
it's because it's pretty reasonable. Like you could do it in maybe two playthroughs pretty
yeah.
easily.
Yeah, if this one ends up being I have to do a second playthrough, I'll be like, it will not be 100% achievements. It'll
Yeah,
be
no,
more like
that's too much.
99% or something. Because
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna play through it once because the Persona 3 FES was one of my favorite PS2
That
RPGs,
actually
and
brings up another game that I've
yeah.
been playing recently.
Oh, which one?
And that is A Plague Tale: Innocence.
Oh,
The reason
what do
why
you
I
think about
bring
that one?
okay, so yeah, so I'll put it this way. The achievement thing, right? I
Hmm.
started out playing that game and I look over the achievements before I start playing a game.
Yeah,
So just out of curiosity. 'Cause I like getting those achievements. It gives me that dopamine hit.
the little
Um,
ding. Yeah.
uh, so I was looking over the achievements and I was like, I could probably 100% this.
Yeah.
And so I was like looking in every nook and cranny for all the
All the
collectibles or
collectibles.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm finding the game so boring that I
Really?
decided I'm not
They're
doing it.
not.
And I think the reason why I'm
Wow.
finding it boring, because since I stopped trying to look for everything, it's gotten a lot better.
It's gotten better because you're just
Yeah,
kind of going through areas looking for that last little thing when there's nothing to do except find that collectible.
yes,
Is that it?
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. It's, just putting my nose in every corner is not fun,
Hmm.
and the movement speed in that game is low enough that that is
Yeah.
a like that's a lot of time.
Yeah. It
So
does.
yeah, I was just not enjoying it. Story-wise, it's really interesting. Like it's
Yeah.
got me interested. And I think that's where that game kind of shines because aside from
Yeah.
that, it's basically like a stealth game
Yeah.
with
You're just
some
trying to get through. You're playing
pseudo
as
puzzle
the
sections, and it's
yeah, like the
not
sister and brother and
challenging.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
from a
I'm
gameplay
wondering.
standpoint, I think it's very weak.
Yeah, I
Um,
wondered if the sequel that came out recent was it last year or year before?
Requiem, yeah.
Requiem, if they up the difficulty or gameplay
Yeah, I
changes.
wonder. I kind of wonder. I'd say it is a good thing to check out for people who like narrative games. But if you don't
Yeah.
like narrative games, then stay far away because you will not enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean I've played different ones. I've I don't know. I'm trying to think one of the ones that I kind of liked, but I know like a lot of people didn't. Well, a lot of people did like was it Gone Home? It was just like a walking simulator
Gone
where you just
Home, yeah, yeah,
solve
yeah.
some puzzles. It's a pretty short one, honestly. Like that one, I mean, that was one of the earlier kind of walking sim puzzle games, and it was interesting. I like that it was so different from what I'd been playing at the time. But yeah, I want to play. I wanted to try Plague Tale, both Innocence and Requiem. Um, they're on my backlog list along with several other games. So
Yes, yeah.
I just
My
yeah, I need to
backlog
get
is
around to
getting too
that.
long.
Yeah,
um,
mine's
I've
infinite
actually
at this
shrunk it
point.
this year, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, but it's
Uh,
yeah. I
yeah. So
am
you're playing.
very. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say beyond Plague Tale, Innocence, and Forgive Me, Father. Was there any other games that you've been playing?
I'm also playing Dusk 82, which is the
Dusk
prequel
82.
to Dusk and plays nothing like
Oh,
Dusk. It's like based off of a very old like MS-DOS kind of game.
oh wow, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's really interesting because what they did was they hired Andrew Hulshult to do the music again,
Yeah.
and it's the same music. They just made it chip tune instead of like
Hmm.
full
So
guitars
just
and
kind of
drums and everything.
conversion of the yeah, like converted music. That's cool. Do you
Yeah,
like it? Not
it
like it?
is okay. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah, not bad.
It's fine. It's the levels are really short, so it's one of those that I'll pull up on my Steam Deck when I just have a few minutes and
Yeah,
play a
just kind
couple
of do a
levels.
quick.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of cool
Very
for me.
puzzle oriented. Oh,
Oh, yeah, it's
yeah.
so like compared. So it's mostly puzzling instead of like because
It's
the
really
Dust game
puzzle
is
oriented.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is not an action game at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's the other one. It's not much to talk about, to be honest, but
Yeah.
it's okay. If you liked
Yeah.
Dusk and it's super cheap and it's really short, so
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I don't know. I think Dusk. I'm not sure. I might have it. I think I have it on my Steam library.
Dusk is great.
Maybe.
Dusk is a definitely
Uh.
must play for boomer shooter fans.
Yeah. What was it for? I need. There's several boomer shooters that I wanted to try out, but I
Yeah,
have not
man, there
done
are
so.
so many of
It's
them
like the
now. It's
revival in the last like 5 years has been kind of insane. Like
well,
the
and here's
amount.
the thing though, is that I will say exactly what I said earlier in the show, is that that genre has an identity crisis. Like boomer shooter doesn't mean
Uh,
anything anymore. It
yeah.
means not modern AAA looking shooter, basically.
Basically, yeah,
Because
like
I mean, you
low
look
res
at
graphics or
they
some
call
other
Turbo
type of like,
Overkill a boomer shooter,
yeah,
and I'm here to tell you that ain't no
that
boomer
is not,
shooter. No.
yeah,
You know what I would call it? I would call it an
arcade speedrun.
Eternal like,
No.
because it's very much like Doom Eternal.
Oh yeah, Eternal. Yeah, because Doom Eternal is a different take. Like it's kind of more of a. It's not how classic Doom is, right?
Oh
It's like
no,
it's an
not at
evolution.
all.
It's like
It
its
is an
own thing
evolution.
now. Yeah.
It ditches most of so where Doom 2016 was a modern a modern take on to me Doom 2016 was what if the old style of shooters never went out of style? What if COD never happened?
Yeah, and you
You
just
know?
kept going down the path of Doom and
Yeah,
Wolfenstein
exactly.
and stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a what if. Whereas Doom Eternal is like, what if that happened and then gaming still evolved down this
Hmm.
other path?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. It's just one of those things where I'm like, calling it a boomer shooter is kind of disingenuous. It doesn't make sense. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with retro shooters other than maybe the level format, kind of, but
Yeah.
not really. What I mean is that it's level based.
Yeah.
But
Interesting.
if that one is in your library, then I would recommend that one is high on your list because it is so good.
Okay.
It
I'll
is
have to
it is
see if
so
I
good.
can add it. Yeah, like I said, I have
Yeah,
so many
too much,
so
too
many
much.
games, and like I, besides Prince of Persia, I was gonna say like I'll touch base real quick before we move on to the next segment.
Yeah,
I
sure.
did jump into a game that is pretty mainstream with well, it's on many platforms. So it's on PC, I think on Epic Games Store. It's on mobile. It's on PS5. But it's Zenless Zone Zero. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
Oh, yes, I know
yes,
of it.
it's
I do not live
Or
under a rock.
Hoyoverse. Yes, it's a
It's
Hoyoverse
the new
game. So
gotcha game.
guys, yes, it is a gotcha game. It, it piqued my interest. Back in was it back during the pandemic era when Genshin Impact came out, I did play it for several hours. I invested a decent amount of time in there, and
Same.
I enjoyed it. Like it was fun. I got the gotcha stuff kind of got annoying at some points, but I
Yep,
respected
exactly.
the fact that it was a different take. It had elements from Breath of the Wild, like with the exploration and stuff, and I got why people are hooked on it. Great art style. It was free. You could play it pretty much without having to spend money if you really wanted to. You could still play that game and get through it
I
and do the
think
story stuff.
to a
Yeah,
point it wasn't
yeah.
too bad to play without spending money. But
Yeah, there was a point.
there did come a point for me where I was like, okay, I see your hand.
You
I see
see,
what you're doing
well,
here. You're
I
making it
think,
easy enough to progress till I get
yeah.
invested, and then you're gonna pull the rug out from under
Well,
me.
and then you have to either grind or spend money. And the
Yes,
grind
and
got a
I
little
ain't doing
heavy.
the no, I'm not doing the
Yeah.
grind because it's
Which,
just not fun.
yeah, and I
It's
haven't
the
been
game
back.
is
Like,
fun, it's not that fun.
yeah, it was fun, and I invested a lot of time. Got the, exclusive PlayStation exclusive Aloy, character and everything. But that was cool. I haven't been back on it probably since maybe last year sometime. I know they've continually updated it, and so they also what was it? Was it last year they released Honkai Star Rail, which I don't know if
Oh,
you
yes,
knew about
I'm
that one.
aware.
Which
Yeah,
that
I
one
know that
was
one.
another gotcha, but it was a turn-based one, which I
Yep.
did play that one for a bit, and I liked the kind of space steampunk futuristic. I don't know, it was a weird mishmash of styles, but it was kind of cool. Like, you're going on this train, like this spaceship train that goes through to different worlds, and the turn-based combat was interesting enough to keep me playing for a while, but it also like it kind of I fell off of that one pretty fast. Like I
Oh,
don't know,
yeah.
that one they were up to, and I think they're still updating it, and I don't know if they're updating it as much as Genshin Impact, but I heard
I
about
don't think
Zenless
it's
Zone Zero.
as popular.
Yeah, it's well, I don't know how it is now, and I haven't been back to that one in a long time either.
Yeah.
Um, but Zenless, I saw, some different previews and some trailers, and I was just like, I was loving the art style. Like, it's still anime, inspired, but
Oh, of
like,
course. Yeah.
it's this kind of retro futuristic take
You
where it
know, to
has,
be honest, I
yeah,
saw the ad and I thought the same thing. I was like, this is kind of cool. I kind of like the art style. It's
that is, man,
if it wasn't Hoyoverse, then I probably would play it.
the
And that's not
style.
that's not a
Oh
that's not
man,
yeah,
I
I
was
just
I was
know
initially
it's the
put
right
off,
type
and
of
I was just
thing.
like, yeah, but seeing like some of the combat and stuff, and I wasn't sure like what to expect because um, Genshin was open world, Honkai Star Rail was not. It was like you had big environments you could go through, but they were kind of segmented. Unless they've changed that, maybe they have. I don't know. I haven't played it
Who
enough.
knows?
But this one, I wasn't sure what it was, but the combat looked so fun. Like, it's fast-paced action where you have a party of three that you're switching in different elemental abilities, things like that. Combat is fun. Like it's simple, but it's fun. And I get
Yeah.
like it has a good flow to it. Like when you're pairing and switching in people and trying to get the right elemental attack to take down shields and things like that. It just kind of hits, and the combat areas are segmented, so it's not open world. You have like a hub place that you kind of go around in between fights and stuff, and then you go into this kind of your combat takes place in these things called hollows, which are kind of these offshoot little mini pocket dimensions that you go into, and it's kind of this weird mishmash like of an old school dungeon crawler. So you're on this like screen that has these old school TV screens that your little dude goes through, and you get to different like a screen, and it will either have like treasure or it'll be a fight, and then when you get into the fight you actually go into the battle arena. And then there's sometimes places to explore a little bit in different modes. But either way, the combat is fun. It's easy to learn, and I can see the hook there. But man, the style in that game, it's like turned up to 11. I like it's cool. Like the way they tie in the kind of retro aesthetic of your main character. He runs, or he or she. You can pick it's a brother and a sister duo that you can pick one of them to play as.
Okay.
Um, but like you own this video store that it's they have VHS tapes, but you're in this place that has like robots and like all this other crazy future tech, but it's still like I don't know. It's you're in this town is like the last bastion of humanity in this world that's being assaulted by these like pocket dimensions that are called hollows, and like these monsters that are coming out of it. And so you're just trying to like get by in this little place, and so you're managing your video store a little bit. You're doing exploration. You're taking on little contracts from like the internet. You go onto like like this social media thing and accept contracts and fight stuff, and I don't know. It has a charm to it that I think is much better than either Genshin or Honkai, like to just grab you. And yeah, like it has some of the like anime tropes and how like some of the people are, but how they
Yeah.
act, and some of the voices are kind of annoying, but the main characters aren't. I think the
See,
main characters
I'm
aren't.
okay with that because I like anime.
Yeah, like
It
there's
doesn't
a
really bother me.
couple. There's only like been one or two of the characters that have the high pitched squeaky voices that you're just
Yeah,
like,
when they get too squeaky,
yeah.
yeah, that can kind of get on my.
Yeah,
Oh
but
gosh,
the main.
that one character
Oh,
from
yeah.
Genshin,
Oh, what's her? Yeah, the little
she is
fairy girl. What's her
so
name?
annoying. Yes, I don't remember.
Paimon. Paimon.
Paimon, yes, horrid.
Yes, yeah. Paimon was
That
super annoying.
Paimon was almost enough for me to just be like, nope, on that game. I almost just turned it off when
Uh,
that showed up.
yeah, Paimon was pretty rough. But I would say Zenless Zone Zero. It's nice to like, and it plays well. Like it plays well across all platforms. I've tried it on PC, on Epic. I've played it on PS5, and I've tried it on mobile. It plays great across the board. Mobile has full controller support, which is a definitely not the
What?
case for Genshin. Yeah,
Yes. Okay,
I
so
plugged
that
in
was a
my little
big thing for
USB-C.
me. I was like, how can
Yeah.
Genshin not have controller support on
Yeah, it only has it on
like why?
iPhone. Yeah, it doesn't have it on Android. I don't get why, and they haven't
Mm.
patched it in, or unless maybe
Okay,
they have, unless. But
so
anyways,
that's a good segue
yeah,
into our next topic,
yeah,
actually,
okay.
which is the news. So a few news
Oh,
stories.
yes.
One that I wanted to bring up was the absolute failure of gaming on Apple devices. So I'm
Uh,
sure you're probably aware that
yeah.
Apple has been making this big push to have these AAA games ported to
Oh
iPhone,
yes,
iPad.
Resident Evil. Anyone or Resident
Have you?
Evil 4 and 8, I believe
So
were.
yeah, it's I think Village was the
Yeah,
first one that
So
they
yeah,
did.
Village, and then 4 remake, right?
They did 4 remake, and they just recently released 7.
Wait,
Um,
really?
yeah,
Oh,
7. They also have Death Stranding is another one that they've released on there.
what? How
Um,
does it actually play though?
so okay, from what
Yeah,
I've seen, it's obviously a degraded experience, but
yeah,
it's okay. I think Death Stranding is worse than most of the rest of them.
yeah. Well, Death Stranding is such a massive open world. Like, I'm actually
Uh-huh.
surprised by that one, because I guess the
Well,
first
'cause
one
it
technically
didn't run
wasn't
great
published by
on
Sony
it didn't run great on any platform when it
when it first
released.
came
I
out.
remember
Yeah,
there were a lot of issues with it.
it took it being ported or upgraded on PS5 for it to actually run well on console. I know.
Yeah.
Um,
So anyway,
yeah. So
the failure that is that okay, so they just released this week. They released sorry, Resident Evil 7. Do you know how many people bought it?
would it
It's
be?
like $15,
Yeah. Would it be like less than 1,000? Maybe. I don't know.
less than 2,000.
Oh, okay.
Less
So,
than 2,000
dang.
people purchased it.
Wow.
Out of
That
all of
is.
the titles that I named, none of them have broken 5,000 sales.
Yeah.
Most of them haven't broken 3.
Well, why
I
would
think
you
it's just
want? I
Resident
mean,
Evil 4 that broke, that was
that one.
somewhere in the neighborhood of 5.
Yeah.
And that's like,
Well,
well, yeah, it's a brand new AAA game, so
yeah.
yeah, it's gonna sell
Well,
better.
I think that it goes, partly, yeah, definitely Apple and how they've handled releasing games and other things on their platform or on the iPhone, iPad platform,
Hmm.
but also just the trouble with mobile gaming and the expectations of cost and how, I mean, you have for everything's like free to play on mobile.
Yeah.
The top
Well,
games.
people don't
I
want
mean,
to buy games for mobile. It's just we've seen this again and again. Remember
yeah, look at
Nintendo? Remember
yeah.
Nintendo when they were developing games
Oh god,
specifically
for
for
mobile.
mobile
Yeah, I
and
remember
nobody was
Mario Kart
buying them?
Mobile, Fire Emblem Mobile, and I tried
Uh-huh.
them, and I was like, these are just worse versions of the console one,
I actually
and they're
played
free.
a decent amount of Fire Emblem Mobile.
I tried to, but
Um,
it was too much. That was definitely a gotcha game. That
that
one.
was the
Whew.
problem I had with it. That was the biggest problem I had with it was I was
Yeah,
like, this isn't they didn't follow the same thing that they did with Mario Run. This is a gotcha game.
yeah.
This is a
Oh
we're
yeah.
trying to sell you microtransactions.
Yes, exactly. And
And in
right
that
now,
way
I
it
think
wasn't very good.
did Nintendo fully exit the mobile phone market at this point? I know that
Yes.
they shut down
Yeah,
several
I
of their
don't remember
games.
when it was, but I remember them making an announcement about it. Oh,
Yeah, besides, I guess, having ties to what Pokemon Go and stuff, which I don't know. Those
right,
are
but
those
that's
are
not
those other ones.
directly Nintendo, right?
Yeah, it's like through the Pokemon Company, which they own a huge stake in, I believe. But
Yep.
yeah, but
I
anyways, going back to the triple A games or like console style games, like there's just I don't think because of how the mobile market started and just kept going with so much cheap apps or cheap games and then free to play. There's just not a space for premium, AAA titles to be on mobile, like to be on the App Store the way
What you
that
are
they are.
hoping for there is that the core gaming market will decide to buy your game on mobile
Yeah.
because those are the only people who are going to pay $15 for a game.
Yeah, because
They're the only people.
a casual mobile gamer is going to be like 15 or how much was it, $15 or $20 for each of those,
$15
you know?
for I don't know what the price was on all of them. I know that
Yeah.
Resident Evil 7 was $15.
Yeah. So look at $15. Or you could play something that's probably better optimized and plays better, like a free to play like Genshin Impact or Zenless Zone Zero, like one of the ones we were just talking about. Like
Yes.
those are free and they're
Uh-huh.
massive and there's just content constantly. Or you can play a one time, Resident Evil games, you play them for however many hours and they're done. Or you get this live service game essentially that has like endless content
Here's the
for
thing
nothing.
that I'll
So,
say about it though, is that it's also this is not just for iPhone. This is for
yeah.
iPhone and for
Oh,
Mac
and isn't
and
anything with
for iPad.
the M1 processor or
Yep.
M2 processor? Yeah,
Anything with
okay.
anything with the Apple Silicon.
Interesting. I'm
Um,
curious how well if they're all using the same processor. I'm assuming the MacBooks or the iPads that have them probably play about the same. I don't know.
well, I think the
Maybe better.
MacBooks probably run a bit better because
Yeah,
they're
higher
more
clock speeds
robust
or something.
in, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same chip, but that doesn't mean it's running the same.
Exactly.
It's
They
kind of
they
like the
probably have a
mobile 4090 versus the 4090 for
yes.
desktop.
It has a
It's not the
custom
same thing.
profile, so yeah, exactly, and it's clocked differently. So yeah, so that's I don't know. Apple has just struggled. I know early on what they tried. What was it when they partnered? What was that game? Something Blade by Epic Games that partnered with them. The one that
Oh,
they delisted
I
in the
don't
last couple of
remember.
years. Something
Yeah, I don't
Blade.
remember.
Yeah, that they it was like, oh, we're making this, new type of mobile game that you pay for, and it's, this it's console quality graphics, but with touch controls made specifically
Hmm.
to take and apparently it did well, but not well
Not
enough. I
well
mean,
enough for
it
them
got
to decide to continue with that model.
exactly it got delisted and like you
It's
can't even play it
ridiculous.
anymore, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's one other thing that I wanted to ask you about this,
mhm,
right? Is so clearly there are so many issues with what they're
yeah,
trying to do because it's not
yeah.
working. What is it that they could do? If Apple really seriously wants to get into the gaming business, what do they need to do?
I think they would have to. Um, they would. My thoughts before were that Apple needs to make a first-party like gaming controller that fits with their iPhones, like that is
Ah,
fully featured.
yes,
You have
exactly.
that in, or it has some sort of like extra like you. It's like the N64 had the little cartridge that you could put in the back of it, and it upped the power. It gave it more RAM, I guess, so you could play different
Yes, it
games.
was a RAM
So even
insert.
it was a RAM insert. So like maybe I don't know. That would might be stupid, but like they need
Yeah.
to have an official product. So like a controller that goes with it, and they have to
Yes.
just get buy-in from certain studios to make games that are good for mobile, that play good on mobile, that aren't just another version of a touchscreen game, like or a console game. Like it has to be specifically tailored to
It
or
has
to
to
take
be
advantage of the
something.
touchscreen or the different parts of the iPhone that can make it unique and fun to play, and it has to be at the right price point. I don't think you can expect the majority of mobile players to be okay with spending 15 more than honestly, think I don't know, most mobile players would be happy spending more than $10 like on
Oh
an
yeah.
app or game. Like
Which is silly,
they would
right?
have
Because
trouble.
they have
It is
literally
silly.
$100 uh premium currency bundles for
Oh yeah, these my
every
for
mobile
the
game under
whales
the
and stuff. Oh
sun.
man, dude,
Well,
like I play Marvel Snap. Have you heard of that on mobile?
oh yeah, I know about Marvel
You know
Snap.
Marvel Snap. I'm in that game. But guess what? I've only spent a few bucks on it, like total,
Yeah, sure.
to just support the devs because I've put in time on it because I've enjoyed it. But there are packs. There are like buy a variant of a card, a character card, that are like $200. There, I'm
You're
like, who
kidding
in the
me.
world? Yeah, 100 to 200 bucks, and I'm like, what? Like, what universe? Like, what person does that? And some of them, I'm
Yeah,
like, the art is so bad that I'm like, why? But it's exclusive or
because
something. But
it's
people do
well,
it.
it's the same reason why people buy Supreme.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, do people buy Supreme because it looks good?
Uh, maybe not. uh,
Let's see. I'm gonna look it up here.
yeah.
Oh yeah, here we go. Um, I want their official website. Let's look at this. This is just ridiculous. I'm gonna show you this right here.
Oh,
Okay, this T-shirt right here, $108. For
wait, where?
what?
Or I can't see it.
Oh, is it not
uh,
showing it on the
not
screen?
sure. No.
On the stream, it's not showing you?
It's not showing. I'm just seeing your gameplay paused.
Oh, I wonder if I streamed let me fix this here. I probably just streamed that rather than that screen. Yes, that's exactly what I did. I streamed the application instead of the.
Gotcha. No worries.
There we go.
So
This
that,
t-shirt is $108.
yeah,
Why
I
is it
mean,
$108?
it looks
It's
like
an
something that I could screen print or do myself with.
it's an image thing. It's an
It is an
image thing.
image. Yeah, yeah. There's always gonna. That's the thing. The mobile gaming market has shown that there will always be players that are the whales, the cash cows that
Uh-huh.
are willing. That's the thing. They pick a game, they stick to it, and that's their game, which is fine.
Yeah.
I don't. That's the same thing with like those Eve Online players that spend thousands to buy a ship, or the ones that are playing.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Star Citizen? Is that the new one? That has the
Oh,
twenty thousand
yeah.
$20,000 ship that you can
Yep.
get. Yeah, like there are people that like there's a market, so if there's a market, people will put something there for people to buy.
Yep.
So for Apple to do well, they have to have a concerted effort where they say if we're going to do this, we got to do this.
I
And
agree.
I
They
don't
need
know
to,
if
and I think the hardware is important because
yeah.
hardware is important to Apple fanboys, right?
Yeah.
Their
Oh,
fan
yeah.
base,
Yes.
they have a very loyal fan base,
Yes.
and they will buy any piece of hardware that they put out,
They
and
will.
they will
And
support it and say it's the best thing that's ever been made,
yeah, look
right?
at look at
So
the Vision Pro and how it got supported, and then they were like afterwards they had buyer's regret, but
yes,
they
exactly.
everyone loved it until they didn't. Which I think for Apple to do well with gaming, they have to make an effort. They have to get behind it and like invest into it
Yeah,
because
they need
they can't
to
do these
stop
half
it with these.
measures.
That's exactly
Yeah,
what I was gonna say. It's half measures. Oh, we'll
yeah.
just pay Capcom a little bit to port a
Support.
really popular game onto our platform and
Yeah, and
it'll
look,
work.
we can say you're
No.
playing console Resident Evil, but it's not because it's definitely toned down. It's not, and that's not what people want. Like, I think that's the thing. Like, at this point, with how mobile phones are, there hasn't been because what the Switch being like a home console and a portable. Like, we're not in the old era of having the Nintendo DS or 3DS and the PSP or PS Vita, where mobile games were they were specifically made to the hardware. Like they
Yes.
took advantage of either the touch screen, the microphones, the anything that was on it. They were
Yeah.
unique and they were made for that hardware. And so they ran well, they played well, they had their different mechanics that worked. Like the one I always think about that I had so much fun with was on Nintendo DS. You've probably heard of it because I made a sequel, The World Ends with You, Square
Yeah.
Enix game, and it was a very unique RPG that took full advantage of the Nintendo DS screen and how the gameplay was. Like you had to use the buttons and the touchscreen when you were fighting, and it
Yeah.
made a difference. And it like the flow of combat, and it made for a very unique gameplay experience that worked because of it was the gameplay was married to the hardware, and
Yes.
so like they
And that's
took
what I loved
advantage.
about the
Yeah,
DS was that a lot of
yeah,
those games they were clearly designed with that touchscreen in mind, and it worked so
absolutely.
well.
Like yeah, like
And you
Warrior,
couldn't
even
get
the
that
WarioWare
experience
games.
anywhere
Yeah,
else. That's the
yeah,
only place you could get that experience.
yeah, and I
I
think
I think that that's what they need to do.
yeah,
They need to create a controller,
yeah,
but they I think they also need to make it X input
yes,
compatible. Not necessarily that it needs to exclusively be X input,
yeah,
but make it so that people can use it on a Windows device.
yeah,
You'll sell more hardware, but then have a really cool feature that is only usable on Apple.
yeah. Something that would say, hey, like this is gonna be unique to playing the game on an Apple device.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. It's been I was gonna bring up because it's just been happening so much in the last like several weeks. But what do you think about Apple opening up their app store to emulators? It's kind of been a
I
big
actually
deal.
didn't know about that. Oh
Yes,
no,
it's
I
been
did know about
very
that.
yeah, it's been
Ah,
very
because I remember
interesting.
I remember some joke post that was like Apple users finally getting to experience what Android users have had for years. And
Yes,
it
and
was
so it's
something like, they're acting like it's some huge innovation. And
yeah, all these
anyway,
people
the
are like,
point
look,
is,
I can
yeah.
play, Pokemon on my iPhone, like Game Boy Advance Pokemon or whatever, and or DS, like some of the older ones, but yeah, I think it's been interesting because it's made it, I think, kind of detrimental to the emulation community. I think it's brought it up to the forefront where Nintendo is now working a lot harder to stop people from playing and emulating their games on mobile,
Oh
which
yeah.
it's been kind of a rough last couple of months for the emulation community and game preservation in general, because so many people on TikTok they show their little video of them playing Pokemon, especially
Playing
Pokemon or
copywritten
Mario.
material on
Oh
a
yeah, Mario. You're
piece
like,
of
look how to
hardware
play
that
Mario. Yeah.
Nintendo is
Uh,
like, this is heresy. Why are you doing this?
yes, and I've seen several. They're like, oh, and look, I'm gonna show you in my video the exact ROM site where I got it, and it's like,
Oh, no, don't
uh,
ever do that. No,
yep,
don't
and
ever do that, because then they will go directly for your
oh,
source.
dude, like it has been, yeah, it has been kind of catastrophic. Some of the best sites that you could get, well, if you were wanting to find ROMs, which
Wait, the
if you
best
if you
one
were,
isn't touched
I'm not
yet.
gonna.
Yeah.
No,
I'm
the
not
best ones
saying
have
who
been
it
touched.
is, but you
Oh
know
yeah.
who I'm
Oh no, I
talking
was gonna
about.
say some of the best ones have been impacted greatly. They've had to get rid of their preservation copies that I'll say that were good for the game preservation of old games. That some that are not available to play, and
I thought
Nintendo
those were already
sent their
protected. I
um
thought that there was already
no
like a big court deal that basically said that
nope
it was okay for game preservation.
no, it's still actually there's still ongoing legal disputes about that. It's been
Oh
rough. Like
boy.
there's actually the game. I'm trying to remember. It's like a one of the museums or game preservation thing that was wanting to get copies of old games, and they're just like they were saying it was okay under like fair use and like all like as a historical thing, but Nintendo sicked their lawyers on everyone, and they were just going, they were going full scale
They're
attack on
ruthless, man.
anyone. Yeah, which
Nintendo is
uh,
ruthless.
yeah, and it's like if Nintendo had access to where you could actually buy these games instead of just stream them to your Switch, and not even all of them, just like pieces of them, and not stream them well, um,
Yep,
and emulate them well, then it would be a different story. Like, and I guess that's not true.
sure.
Some of them are actual emulation, but the emulation isn't good. So yeah, so that's another thing. Like the Apple stuff made it super mainstream for these emulators, and then yeah, it caused
Yeah,
some
that's an interesting
issues.
one.
So yeah, but um, other gaming news. I don't know if this is a good
Yeah.
segue, but yeah, the Concord beta that was recently out the
Oh
last
yeah,
couple
tell me about it.
weekends. Oh boy! So initially, it had was it not this last weekend, 2 weekends ago. They had it where if you pre-ordered the game, or if you had, I believe, a PlayStation Plus membership, you
If
could
you
get
pre-ordered
access.
it, you got access for you and like four other people.
Yeah, they really wanted you to invite your friends to play this game. So for those of you, I mean, not as familiar, Concord, it's been in the news a lot. It's Sony's Sony's upcoming game. It comes out next month in August. It's by, I believe, Firewalk Studios. It was a studio that was put together, like Sony grabbed people from, I believe, Bungie, or a lot of ex-Bungie, and some, I think some people came from Call of Duty studios and all over the place to be this kind of, I don't know if it was a dream team, but they were hoping it was, to create their own hero shooter. Only a few years late to the game. So yeah, they made Concord. They released, I believe it was just a CG trailer during games. They had one during Games Fest, and they had one maybe the Game Awards, I believe. So they had them at a couple shows.
I think the
No, one
Game
of those.
Award wasn't
Yeah,
the Game Awards where they first
maybe
premiered
that's
it?
maybe that's where they
I
first
don't
showed it, and
remember now.
I think so. It's been
No.
a while, or it was one of their Sony's showcases. But either
Oh,
way, they
it
showed
was
it off.
during, yeah, it was a PlayStation Direct, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, okay. Then they showed it off, and they showed it off again. And it looked like a Guardians of the Galaxy knockoff. Like it was
Oh
going
my
for the
goodness.
vibe,
So
where they're trying to use the same humor. The character designs look ripped. Like, they look like they were ripped straight out of the Guardians of the Galaxy video game. That Crystal Dynamics, or not Crystal Dynamics. It was Square Enix. It was Crystal Dynamics did the Avengers game. Um, it was it Eidos? Maybe it was Eidos. I'm trying to remember who it was. Um,
uh who did
anyways,
the Avengers video game?
no, that was Crystal Dynamics. I know they did that
Oh.
because I was disappointed because they did
Yeah, yeah,
some
yeah.
good Tomb Raider games. But anyways, so the Guardians of the Galaxy game that Square Enix released, great game. That's on my backlog. I need to finish it. I'm pretty far into it. Great game, cool art style. So Concord looked like they had just ripped straight out of that game. Like they just like copied it. Like, and they were just like, how can we make our own Guardians of the Galaxy? So, anyways, it wasn't. I don't know. I think people were a little like, okay, you're making a hero shooter in 2024. Okay, let's see. And then so more details came. Okay, it's going to be a paid for release. It's not free to play like how most hero shooters are, like Overwatch nowadays. So it's you got to pay for it. They said, okay, well, you only have to pay $40, but we're probably going to have microtransactions and battle passes and stuff. So that already,
You can't have it both
yeah, they
ways.
wanted it
You
both
can't have
ways.
it both ways.
Yeah, and I think that was the biggest thing. And I feel like this game is a remnant from the Jim Ryan era of him wanting to chase live service. And it has
Oh,
not.
yeah.
Sony was too late to the game. They did, I don't know. I'm still
You're
salty
not
with them
with hero
because
shooters. I think it's the same
yeah.
thing as with like the guys that are out there trying to be CS:GO.
Yes.
You know, there already is a CS:GO.
Yeah, there already is, and
And
you're just trying to get a piece of the pie, but that pie is not one that people want to move on to a different one, like
right,
a different
exactly.
slice.
They're
They're
already
like, they got it.
invested in the one. And
Yeah, and
so
it's
why would they change now?
yeah, you would
Now
have to
with
have a very good reason to switch, and
right.
so yeah,
Now
that's
when
the hardest part.
Overwatch 2 released, then that would have been the time.
That would have been time, but
That would have
not
been the time
a year
because that was
later.
when people were disgruntled and
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Overwatch 2, man. I don't even know. Like,
I
yeah,
mean, it's
that
still
game.
got they actually have a decent amount of people playing that game
They
still.
do,
Like it's a
but
joke that it's dead, but
yeah, but
really
it's
they still
still
have a
so many
huge
people
player
play it.
base.
Well, yeah, I have thoughts. Overwatch 2 should never have been Overwatch 2. It should have just been
Uh-uh.
Overwatch. It never should have
Yeah,
had a
no.
sequel. Like, it was never a
Overwatch 2
sequel.
was just a thinly veiled attempt at trying to win players back.
Yes, and so now Sony's late to the game. They had invested for the last at least 5 to 6 years on this push for live service games. They bought Bungie because they're like, oh well, Bungie knows how to do live service, and it's like, yeah, kind of. But I think
Right.
that they relied a little too much on Bungie because Bungie has a hand in, like, they have so many of their development team that like went over to Firewalk to make Concord, and you can see it. Like, you can see they were one of the guys
I was
plays
gonna
just
say
like
it kind of looked
looks.
very
It
Bungie
looks
like.
like it looks like a somebody took Destiny and then overlaid a Guardians of the Galaxy art style like over it, but kept some of Destiny, and it's halfway between both of them.
Maybe
And
that's why I
like,
thought the gunplay looked so good, was
yes,
because
so
Bungie
one of the
was
guys
involved.
who has a revolver as his main gun. I can't remember his name because I don't care, and I that's how much I'm invested in it. But he plays like a hunter. Like, his abilities are very similar, and the gunplay style is. So
Sure.
so 2 weeks ago they had the kind of closed beta for people that pre-ordered and people that had PlayStation Plus. I wasn't aware. I think they added the PlayStation Plus like later because so few people pre-ordered it and they wanted there to be actual people to play with. So that was like a late ad, I believe. And then this last weekend they opened it up to everyone. You could play it on PlayStation 5, you could play it on Steam. And yeah, so I know we earlier you mentioned, player counts aren't always the end all be all for a success of a game, but on at least on the Steam charts, I believe they peaked over the weekend, all-time high of 2,500
Yeah,
players
it
at one
was in
time.
the 2000s. It was in the
Yes,
2000s. I looked it up.
yes,
Dismal.
and so
That is dismal.
I'm going, okay, so I was already like, I do not want anything to do with this game. I think Sony needs to fail to know, like, to move on and get back to doing what they do the best,
Yep.
which is not live service games. But I didn't want to come into this without having any experience with the game and just like going off of hearsay and videos and stuff. So I downloaded it last weekend and I played it for about a little under an hour. I played it for as long as I could take it. So, um, I just, the game, the game feels like it was designed by a committee or focus group tested, and Sony was like, well, this is what we have to have in an online shooter in 2024. And they took aspects of definitely Overwatch, aspects of Destiny, and then kind of just didn't do either one. Like, I don't know, like the level design is like they made an arena shooter, but they still want you to play it like Overwatch. So there's no good, like, in all the maps I played, it's just like an arena map where there's not really any good paths, like, or choke points like you have in Overwatch maps to like stem the flow. So you're always just kind of able to get around the map, and it's like there's always a big central location where people end up going to and fighting, which isn't great when there's objective modes to play. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
so map design wise, very, very weak. It feels completely just disjointed from the type of game that they made. And then they made, these characters, they're definitely copies of what you expect from an Overwatch clone or hero shooter, with the ability, like they each have, you know, two abilities, but get this, they don't have ultimate abilities. Like not
What?
any like major ults. They have like two abilities and maybe like a passive or something, and then they're different types of guns, but they don't have ults. At least that's from my under. Like I couldn't find anything that was like an ultimate, and I thought
That's odd.
other other people that had played it said that there weren't any ults as well. So there's nothing that can turn the tide of battle drastically, like a mercy ability or something, like or any of the characters in
So then
Overwatch
it's
that
closer
could.
to TF2 than to Overwatch?
Not even, because like there isn't any good synergy. It's like they designed all these characters are like, well, what if
Oh, they were all
we did
designed in a
this?
vacuum.
Yeah, so like, well, this guy, he's a gosh, the characters, man, they like one's a giant robot that's basically just a vacuum. He if you've seen the picture, he looks like a giant
No,
trash
I've
can.
seen him,
He's
and I've
massive. And
seen that
guess
he
what?
has wind abilities.
Yeah, he has like a vacuum. Like you suck trash up and shoot it at people or like I didn't even
That's
get to
his
play as
weapon?
him. Yeah, I was like, okay. And beyond like so the characters, I mean, there is also the controversy of like them all the characters have their pronouns and all that stuff, so it goes into the political side. But like that's just I think the overall design of these characters is bad. Like they wanted to copy Guardians of the Galaxy, and so they just made it like everyone looks weird. Like every character in that game is kind of off-putting. Like I like it's like they're either very much on one side of the scale of like giant giant robot that's enormous that looks like a trash can, or like just really weird mushroom alien character that kind of I don't know if it's like the trichophobia or is it trichophobia or it has like the weird pattern, like kind of mushroom pattern on it. Like
You're
that
talking
one
about
looks just super weird. Like the poor people don't like the like
holes?
holes and stuff, like just
Trypophobia.
like patterns. Is that yeah or yeah? So
Yeah.
the designs, like I don't know, they it's like they got every character and gave it to some artist and like make the most crazy out there character you can make that you want to, and they're just kind of ugly. Like nothing. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel like it meshes well. They tried to make. I don't know. It's like I said, designed by a committee, focus group. Like nothing meshes well. It's like they tried to do everything, so they did it all not very good. And to say like the gameplay, so I did play it, played several matches. It feels slow. Like it doesn't feel fluid. There's characters that have like double jumps, some don't. The mantling is like sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. I don't know. Like it it does
That's
not
unfortunate.
feel good to play. It feels unbalanced and
There are
just
some of
weird.
those things that can be fixed.
Yeah,
When
there's
it
some of
comes
it,
to
but
things like mantling, that can be
yeah,
fixed.
that can be
But
fixed. That can be
but here's
easily
the thing is
fixed.
another thing, and this is something that really bothers me. I watched Skill Up's video today.
Oh yeah.
He was talking about the game, and I like Skill
Uh,
Up.
yeah.
His stuff's okay, but you can
Yeah.
tell who's buttering his bread because
Yes,
he's
he
very
gets invited
cautious
to a lot of
about, yeah,
events.
he's
He doesn't
very
want to say too
cautious
much
about
negative.
criticizing.
Yeah.
And so he says a few good things about Concord, and then he says a bunch of bad things, but he still is like optimistic that they're gonna
Optimistic. Yeah.
be able to
That
fix
like
it. And I'm
they
like,
could
dude,
fix
you were
they could
talking
fix
about
Mantle.
problems with the map design. That ain't getting
Yes.
fixed. You like at this point in the game, at,
Yeah.
at this point in development, if you have a bunch of maps that don't flow well for your game, then guess
Yeah.
what? You're done.
Yeah, and
Because
it
that is an expensive, that takes a lot of time to rebuild your
well,
maps.
like look at it's gonna release next month. There's no
Yes.
way in 4 to 5 weeks that they will be like, oh yeah, we'll go back to the drawing board and release, all new maps or change the maps.
Uh-huh. Well,
They
he
could,
said that it needs a
yeah.
big delay, and I was like, for a map redesign, I mean, you're talking about like at least 6 months of
Yeah,
doing it.
and I know that
At
Sony's
least.
not they're not going to, and they're gonna release it. Maybe they'll have some sort of tax write-off on it if it doesn't do well. But as it stands, the overall gameplay, it's not cohesive with map design, with the character abilities, the feel, like the overall balance, like the feel of the characters. They feel slow. They don't. I don't know. Everything about it just is not where I think it should be when you have you're bragging about having people from Call of Duty and Destiny that are on this game, but it feels worse than both of those. It's not like if you want to brag about that, then your game needs to be as good, at least as good or better, or have some sort of hook or
Yeah,
gameplay mechanic that helps
absolutely.
you set yourself aside apart because people are just going to play Overwatch. Or they're going to go play Marvel Rivals. I've been in the playtest this week. I was in the previous one a couple months ago. That one
Yep.
is another hero shooter. Their concurrent player count was at least maybe 10 times, maybe 20 times higher, I think.
That's pretty
Um,
good. I
and
mean,
that's
that's
with
not
limited,
perfect,
well,
but
that's with limited access to keys. Like
yeah.
they're limiting how many people can get in. Um, and that one definitely apes off of Overwatch a lot. But anyways, but yeah, Concord, I don't know. I think it's trying to be too many things to too many people, and I don't think it's gonna succeed.
Yep.
Not
I'm
with
sick
it
of
being a
design by committee stuff where
and
it's like we just want to appeal to everybody and to not offend
and to
anybody.
nobody. Yeah, and they're like, oh,
And
yeah, that's the
you
whole
just
thing.
can't.
I
You can't do
Yeah,
that.
you can't do that and be good at anything. Like you're gonna
Yeah.
be maybe competent at things, but you're not gonna be good at everything or
Right.
one
And in
thing.
a
So
market the way that gaming is right now, you gotta be great at something.
yeah,
Otherwise, you will
and
fail.
yeah, and I think at this point the way that Sony's acted, and I was gonna say earlier, I'm pretty salty that they acquired Destiny. They used or they acquired Bungie, so Destiny developers,
Which
and
is
then
hilarious to me.
which they spent way too much money on that studio. That is the amount they spent on them is insane, for what they paid for like Insomniac and Naughty Dog. But they asked the developers from Bungie to go review all of their live service projects, and I am very mad that they shuttered the Last of Us Factions game mode that they were gonna release because they couldn't monetize it enough as a live service game, and they didn't think it was gonna succeed as a live service game, even though it
Yeah,
was
see,
already
that's
yeah,
that's
even though it was already
obnoxious.
yeah, and that's the
Stop.
thing,
Just
people
stop with trying to make everything a live service. Live
yeah,
service is competitive. And
mm-hmm,
I wish that, and I think that they actually kind of are starting to get to
yeah,
this point, but publishers are starting to figure out it is very high risk. Yes, there
yes,
is a high chance. Yes, there is a chance of extremely high gains, but
yeah,
there is a even higher chance of basically just losing money.
yeah, there
It's
is, so
high risk. It's too
yes,
competitive. It's too hard to get people to leave their current live service
yeah.
game. Yeah, it's
Yeah, so I think that Concord needs to fail so that Sony being one of the big three in the industry, maybe they'll learn from it and they'll go back to doing what they do best and working on either those AAA single player games or whatever, but like using their studios for their strengths and not trying to cobble together a group of people to try to chase some game. So I think that yeah, I'm glad that it had low player counts. I'm glad that people are saying they're not going to buy it.
yep,
Because I think, and it's sad to say. I mean, I feel bad for the developers and stuff, but also, I feel like they should have pushed back on it and been like, no, let's do something better, or let's use our talents to make
yeah,
something great. And I think that it's sad that there's a lot of studios that are closing in the industry, and being impacted by poor performance, but
yep. I
that's
think
just
that a
part of
lot
the
of that will
game.
even
Yeah,
out, and that is, you know, I don't want to be that guy, but
yeah,
when people talk about all the layoffs and everything, I'm kind of like, I mean, have you looked at corporate America over the past decade?
Yeah,
This, I
I
mean,
was I was
this
gonna
is
say I've
pretty
been part of
normal for
that.
businesses this size.
Yeah, I've experienced it when it's like, and that's the thing. It's like if you are a studio that's you're making games and your games aren't selling, what do you like? What do you expect? Like you're making stuff that people aren't buying.
Yes.
So yeah, there's gonna be impacts. Like I was at a company that wasn't making enough money, and they had to lay people off too. So it's like it's everywhere. It's a business,
Yeah.
so you can't expect them to just work in a
I
vacuum
I
and
do
just
agree with
exist.
the
Yeah.
sentiment that we need to stop giving CEOs these golden parachutes.
Oh yeah, gosh,
Like the
Activision.
executives, they
Uh,
need to be the ones taking the hit, right? So, have you
yes,
ever heard the
yes.
term risk pay? That's the idea,
Um,
right? So,
yeah.
CEOs and high-level executives, they get paid high amounts because they're supposed to be absorbing a lot of risk.
Oh yeah, and yeah,
But
they're supposed to.
but
So
that's just not the case anymore because they have these deals that basically just prevent them from. I
there's
mean,
not any risk
there
for
are
them. Like
executives that purposely screw up so that they get fired because they
yeah,
want the severance
they
package.
want the golden parachute. I mean, like I don't know how many million was it Bobby Kotick got from Activision, or there was an executive at EA that drove them into the ground over the course of several years and messed a lot of stuff up, and he got out with several million.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, so I
dumb.
think it's
You
insane
shouldn't
how
be
much they get
rewarded
paid.
for ruining
No.
everybody else's lives and losing a bunch of other people their jobs.
Yeah, they should have some stipulation where it's like if you're under your leadership, if they lose this much, then your pay gets cut, or you're gonna like so you need to
Yep.
perform. Which, that I think that I don't think all of the layoffs and stuff will like there may be some over the next year, but I think it'll stabilize a bit. I mean, we've seen all these studios, sadly, what was it by Embracer Group, that they
Oh yeah.
absorbed so many studios, and there's so many of them that have been closed, which is sad. But
For
I think
anybody
them,
listening who
yeah,
doesn't know about the Embracer Group stuff,
yeah,
there's a really good video that Second Wind did on the Embracer Group thing, where they kind of
yeah,
talk
that one's
about,
great. Yeah,
yeah, I believe it's one of Frost's videos, so it's a cold take. I'll
yeah,
link it in the description, but it's really good. He talks about kind of what happened, and it's pretty interesting.
yeah.
Um,
It's yeah, you
Although
should.
I did want to say one more thing, and then we got to move on to our next
Yeah,
topic.
for
Um,
sure.
the one other thing I wanted to say about this is that I believe strongly that one of the reasons why we're seeing all of these layoffs is because the industry is evening out
Hmm.
after the explosion post COVID or during COVID,
Yes, or during
right?
COVID.
So
Yeah, I think that
during COVID,
yeah,
gaming blew up because everybody was stuck at home. They
yeah.
couldn't
What
do
else are you gonna do?
anything, so they were playing games. And
Yeah,
now those people don't have that time anymore, or people who
yeah,
got back into gaming have decided, I'm done again.
yeah. And I think
And
it's a balance. It's a rebalancing of the scales, and I think we'll get through this. And even with the layoffs that I was going to say earlier, is that with Embracer Group, the studio was it Bytes? I think they're the ones that I believe they made the Gothic games. Um,
mm,
they've been around a while. Like they're one of the older studios that were part of that. But they got closed down like last week or the week before, and they already reformed as a new studio. So like
yep, that's
that
happening a
got
lot now.
them. Yeah, the core team that people these we'll probably have another episode where we talk about how the studios and the teams and their how that impacts a game and stuff like that because we've had some conversations about this before. But those people that the core team is moving on, and they may not be called the same studio, but I think if all that talent is there, then they can probably make some of the games that their fans like. So I think it'll balance out. I don't think this is just going to keep happening forever, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's part of the rebalancing of the economy and rebalancing of just game studios in general. So, or the
Yep.
industry in general. But I
And
think you
yes, a
want,
lot of people will lose their jobs, but hopefully they'll find work somewhere else, and
yeah,
they'll, be a part of another studio. Maybe it will be a good thing for them. Maybe they'll find success in another industry. We just don't know. But I
yeah,
mean, layoffs aren't cool. We don't like them, but
yeah,
you
and
can't really
well,
stop them from happening either.
yeah, and I mean, I always keep an eye out because there are certain studios that that make games that I like a lot, and if they've been consistent over the years, it would make me sad if they shut down. But
Yep.
moving on, I know we wanted to segue into the next, our probably
Yeah,
final
yeah, yeah.
section for this episode is looking at the future games that are coming out, or in the near future games
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
wanted to just talk about that are top of mind. So, is there anything that you are looking forward to
Yes.
or
I'm
interested in?
I'm going to bring onto the screen right now um, a game that I have been very
Peggy 18.
I've been anticipating this announcement, and I know it's not a new announcement anymore. It's
Hmm.
been what, a month or two now.
Yeah, since was it during Games Fest or Summer Games Fest?
Yeah, Summer Games Fest. It was during the Xbox showcase that they
Oh
announced
yes,
this.
yes.
Doom, the Dark Age.
Speaking
I
of, what is it? Not quite boomer shooters anymore. The evolution of.
yes, exactly. Not quite boomer shooters. I have high confidence in it, right?
Yeah.
They they produce pretty good stuff. I will say Rage 2, I played Rage 2. And mechanically it was great, but design, like, it was pretty bad.
Well, that one it did the gameplay, like the
Mhm.
combat, but they were also it was
But they
I
didn't
believe
design the open
Avalanche.
world. Yeah,
Yeah, Avalanche,
Avalanche
the
did,
ones who made Just Cause and Max Payne did that.
which is funny because I know that people really like those games, but the open world in Rage 2 was the problem.
Yeah.
The combat was great.
Yeah, this
So,
one, I mean, this looks like it could be open world or maybe smaller, big arenas that are
I
connected or
think
something.
it is going to be open world or at least
Kind of
semi-open.
semi-open world. Yeah, because that.
There's some hints in the way that you look at how open some of these areas
Yeah,
are
like
that they're
jumping into
showing
those
off,
areas. Yeah.
and just the way that some enemy
Well,
groupings
this
are.
right here, the
Yeah,
dragon flight. Yeah, that looks like it could be, unless they added it in as like a gameplay, like to break up the combat to say, hey, you have this traversal thing where you go between areas on
yep,
the dragon
which is
thing. So
possible. Which is
yeah, that one
possible.
it's looking good. I mean, 2025, so it's not too far off.
Yeah,
Depending on if it's in the spring or if it's maybe at the end of the year next year. But yeah, that one's looking good.
yeah,
I know you're excited. You
it's
love all
pretty
the Doom games.
exciting. It's exciting. I'm, as always, I am going to remain cautiously optimistic because
Yeah,
you never know. They could screw it up.
they could. Yeah,
I liked Doom 1 and 2. I hated Doom 3.
yeah,
It's one of
yeah.
the
That
only
one's pretty
games where
controversial.
I was like, I had to force myself to finish it. And
Yeah,
then I was playing the DLC and I was just like, I can't take it anymore. This game is just so bad. It's so
yeah.
bad. Um,
Uh,
anyway, so I'm trying
yeah,
to remain cautiously optimistic. Uh, I really think that this is going to be the one where they just take too many creative liberties and it's not going to feel like Doom anymore.
yeah.
So
That's true.
we'll see.
So,
We'll
yeah.
see. Which one do you want me to pull up from? You had sent
Um,
me a few of them.
I mean, there's a few, but I mean, the ones that are coming, I'm thinking more near term. So, what's coming out in August? So, one that I want to see some reviews or more gameplay is Black Myth Wukong, which has
Yeah.
just been talked about a lot. There's been a lot of trailers. There's been shots showing like crazy graphic. Like I know a lot of them are CG, but then some of it is actually this. I guess has actual gameplay.
Yes, I
There's
think
been
this
some
one does have
trailers that
some
were
gameplay.
okay, yeah, because one of the trailers I think was just cinematics, and that I have to pause a little bit on those because you've just seen so many that it's not indicative of the final product. But um, this one, looks like it could be a fun, you know, action combat game. But I want to see more because I don't know if there's been too many people that have had a chance to go hands on with it. But it's been what they've shown looks impressive and looks like it could be pretty intense. So I'm curious just to see how it turns out. I'm not sure if the studio has made too many games or if this is like their first major game. Um, I feel like it probably is gonna have some cool. The combat's gonna be cool. I'm. It gives me vibes more. I know it's like I'm trying to think. Not Sekiro, or Sekiro, but it has
Dark
Neo
Souls?
vibes. Huh?
Neo, yes, it does have
Neo, because
very Neo
Neo is
vibes.
kind of Souls, but kind of Ninja Gaiden. Um, it's a mix. So this one, the design, like character designs, give me like Neo vibes for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot. So I'm just curious if it's just kind of aping off of that, or if it's gonna be something different. So I mean, everything looks super intense, as you can see in this trailer.
Yes.
Um, it looks like just crazy and like
From a
lots of
visual
action.
standpoint, I think,
Yeah,
I mean, if you don't think this looks amazing, well,
yeah.
you're
I
lying.
don't know. Yeah, and I'm curious, like, how's the game structured? Is it gonna be? And maybe I need to research more. I just have tried to keep it where I haven't wanted to watch a ton of it, just to because I feel like sometimes like you just see too much of a game before it comes out, and I wanted this to have a little bit more like discovery and surprise. So
Yes.
yeah, I'm curious. I hope it can do well. I just haven't heard a whole lot besides just seeing a few trailers. August 20th, less than a month out. So we'll see.
Yes.
I'll keep my mind open. I mean, it's gonna be on the PS5, Xbox Series X. I'm curious about console performance. I think you know be fine on PC, but I'm curious how it'll perform on
Just
console.
because
If it's gonna be a
it looks so crazy.
it
Yeah.
looks so crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Uh,
so
yeah. So
I've been kind of watching this one, and
yeah.
anything that has as much media attention as this does, I get super cautious about because I'm
Yes, and
just like,
that's
there is no way that they are going to deliver on the hype. Now, does that
yeah.
mean that it's not good? Maybe,
Yeah.
but
No, I
maybe
agree.
not. Maybe it's just people are getting too excited and they need to dial it down a notch.
Yes, I think
Um,
so too. I think it's just been the media coverage has been very high, and that's why I've been like it looks cool, but I'm cautious about it. So that's
yep,
why it's on my list. I do want to wait till there are actual,
like
people have
real people playing it.
real, yeah, I was gonna say real people that aren't major media outlets that are
Yes.
able to play it, get their hands on it, play it, and actually say, hey, this is how it plays, this is how the performance is. So that'll be on my list, and then the other one,
It
I don't know,
looks like
I'm not,
there are going to
yeah,
be a lot of boss fights. Like I'm seeing a lot
yes,
of unique boss looking
character, like
and
enemy
I
designs,
like
yeah,
that idea because
yeah,
I I feel this is going to be very much a Souls-like, and
yeah,
bosses I think are the high point of those,
yeah,
and well, bosses and exploration. But
but whether,
um,
yeah,
the other
it's,
issue I have is that it is a Souls-like, and
mm-hmm,
I am a fan of Dark Souls. Like I
yes,
like Dark Souls. I liked Elden Ring.
yes,
The problem I have with Souls-likes nowadays is that every Souls-likes are getting very popular, but
yes,
the The problem is that too many studios get hyper focused on the fact that Dark Souls is hard, so let's see how
Hmm.
soul crushingly hard we can make this game.
Yes, I
It's
think
not.
they missed the point, and
Yeah,
that
and the
they
problem is that Dark Souls wasn't a great game because it was hard. It was
yeah
because it was challenging, but it was challenging but fair. You never felt
yes
like you lost because the game was unfair.
yeah,
It
and I
You could
think they're
learn it
missing that.
and you could learn from your mistakes and get better every time. A lot
Yeah
of times with more modern Souls likes, it's just like magic inflatable flailing arm man.
yeah.
It's just
Yeah, they're like, let's
terrible.
make crazy enemy designs and make it really hard and
Mm-hmm.
unfair. And it's like it's not about being unfair. It's about making a balanced boss fight that you have to go into it wanting to learn patterns and ability and like understanding your own
Mm-hmm.
abilities. Whereas some games just throw, oh, let's crank up the health bar, let's give them some really annoying abilities that can kill you in one hit or two
Yes.
hits.
And I think there
Which
is a market for those soul crushingly hard games,
yeah,
but
yeah,
uh,
so
but not every Souls like needs to be that way. And it's really gotten in the
yeah,
way of me enjoying most of them, where I'm just like, I don't
yeah.
have the patience for this.
I feel like there's too like you said, too many studios are just trying to do it and they're not doing it very well. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
there's
yeah.
too many games that are using Souls like mechanics, which is unfortunate because I think so many of these games that are trying to be Souls likes could be better action combat games
Yeah,
that
I
are
agree.
not a Souls like. They could make it so much better and more fun and have a bigger audience, but they limit themselves because they're chasing a trend. And that's the problem. That's a problem that's always been around in the video game industry. Is like you see somebody succeed and you try to copy it. So, yeah, this one
I
I'm going
agree.
to be cautiously optimistic, but I'm going to definitely wait till I actually have some real feedback on it and
Yep.
see some more. So,
Okay, here's another one that I'm. This one is coming out next week into early access.
oh, really?
Yes.
So, oh, is this the racing one?
Yes, it is.
Oh man,
40K. Oh, I don't have sound going. Here we
Speed
go.
Freaks. Okay, I heard about that. I was like, is this real? I
This
was
is.
unsure.
I think I may have sent it to our group chat.
Yeah.
Um, this makes me so happy because, for one, if you're into 40K, you know that orcs are the funniest of any of the races.
Yeah.
Um, and just the idea of this combat racing kind of thing, or just,
Yeah. It looks
and
pretty
maybe it's
interesting.
not racing now that I'm looking at
It
the,
looks it
it's
looks
it's
like
vehicle
it's
combat for
vehicle
sure.
combat. Yeah, it's like you're going around maybe an arena and like trying
Yes.
to complete objectives and upgrading your cars or your vehicles. Some of those cars.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one looks. I didn't even. I'd heard a couple. I think a couple posts about it, and somebody was talking about it, and I was like, "What? Is that real? Is that just like a not April Fool's joke?"
Yeah,
But,
it looks to me like it's gonna be amazingly funny and
yeah,
enjoyable. Uh,
yeah,
I might buy it while it's still in early access, but I won't play it
yeah,
obviously until it's been out for a little bit longer. But yeah, we'll
yeah,
see on that one. That's one that I think is pretty cool. I'm gonna
yeah.
pull
No,
over
that.
another one that you sent me.
Which one? Outlaws. Yes. So this one,
Yes.
I'm not exactly
Oh, I need to pause
excited.
this other one before it.
Oh, before it starts going.
Yeah, we're gonna have
Yeah.
problems if I don't do that. Oh, now I've got a weirder problem. Here
Oh,
we go.
oh, multiple. There you go.
Too many windows open.
Too many windows. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, so Star Wars Outlaws, this is one that initially sounded like there was potential, but I'm curious also if this one was. It's Ubisoft, so modern Ubisoft, so also potentially designed by committee, similar to Concord.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Graphically, I think like it looks impressive. People were complaining about it this last week. There was, I don't know if this is the trailer or the other trailer that they had. I think it is the other one that had a lot more gameplay. Um,
Okay.
that they were just like, "Whoa, these graphics are terrible," blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, well, first off, it's a YouTube video. You know, there's compression. Maybe the textures aren't as good, but it is supposed to be, you know, kind of an open world Star Wars game where you're exploring, you know, big environments, traveling, I think, between a couple planets or within a system. Um, and the thing, like, I have a little bit of hope for it because it is by Massive Entertainment. So Massive, if anyone's familiar with them, they have made, well, they've been made, I guess they've been partnered, or I don't know if Ubisoft bought them. It is Ubisoft. I think they're owned by Ubisoft now. But they made The Division and The Division 2, and they did World in Conflict, if you're familiar with that as a strategy game back in the day. Um, so I really enjoyed The Division and The Division 2. We played through the Division 2 for a long time, finishing that game. Um, and you know, it was definitely, you know, that was one of those ones where it was very similar to Destiny, but the environments were great, the combat was fun. The story was okay. That one, because it was more of that Destiny style game, was a bit, you know, it wasn't, I don't think the story was as good as it could be. But this one is a single player game. And I mean, as much as I don't care a whole lot about the Star Wars IP, um, or, you know, the
I care about
expanded
it less all the time.
universe, yeah, like, I mean, you used to, I think, but I mean, I don't care a whole lot. This is set in the past, I believe, between the older episodes, the originals.
Yep.
Um,
I mean,
but
those are classic stormtroopers, so
yeah, but to be able to, you know, that means they have a lot of access to, you know, that lore and those environments and stuff, and that could be cool. But like, Massive has a pretty good track record of making good games that have, you know, good combat that's fun, and environment, like worlds that are fun to explore and have lots of detail, which in this trailer it looks like that. People were complaining, I think, about some of the detail and, like, I think more technical streaming, texture streaming and stuff issues on the other one.
yeah.
But I think that could be a problem on the consoles, honestly, just because looking how detailed this looks in this trailer.
Yeah, it looks
um
insane.
yeah, and I
I
think, like, yeah, there's some space combat, so I think, like, it could be a fun game. You know, it does have that whole, people are complaining because most modern Ubisoft games, just like their last, was it Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora? It was a large open world game, and that one had good reviews. Like, I had, like, one of my, you know, one of our close friends, he was playing it, and he's enjoying it. I think he's still playing it and hasn't beaten it yet. But that one was, you know, based on a movie property as well, and
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
and
wait,
they said
no,
that
duh, I knew that.
it was basically Far Cry in on an alien planet, and it was like super detailed, had fun combat. Um, but that one and this one of the core things that people are kind of going off on it is that, you know, on the box it's like you must activate online, no matter if you have the disc or anything. So it's you cannot play the game like without, like, connecting online to activate it first, which it's not. I mean,
Okay.
that's a modern Ubisoft thing, but
I don't think
most
that's that big a
people,
deal.
yeah, I think it's mainly people that have consoles and have a disc, and I get that.
But
Like, it's
here's the
annoying.
thing. It's been a
Yeah,
long time since the disc doesn't have the whole game on it.
I was gonna say a game this
Hasn't,
big. Like,
yeah.
honestly, it's like I don't know if
No.
all the game files could fit completely, even on a Blu-ray. So, and for the people on PC, I'm like, if you own any games on Steam, don't tell me about activate. I'm annoyed with having to activate it online. It's like, come on. Come
Yeah.
on.
That's ridiculous.
Which, I mean, you know, the Ubisoft launcher is not the greatest. It's improved from where it used to be, but I don't know.
Yeah.
This one I'm curious. I'll definitely wait for reviews. I think it could be fun. It looks like it has like stealth combat. Like, it looks like it has a mix of some of the Division stuff plus Far Cry stuff plus whatever. But, you know, if it has cool stealth combat, because I am still waiting for a Splinter Cell game, which has not. It's been what I think last one was 2015, so it's been
Oh, it
almost a
was a long
decade.
time ago. Yeah.
And I as much as that one was kind of divisive and some people loved it and hated it, I loved it. I had a lot of fun with Splinter Cell Blacklist. So
Stealth,
that
I'm
one was
finding, the more experience I get,
yeah.
the more I'm like, stealth is hard to do right. It's
Yeah,
really
and
hard to
when
do
you do
right.
it right, it's really fun. And there hasn't been a really good, I think, solid stealth game for a long time. And the fact that Splinter Cell is a massive IP that Ubisoft has not gone back um, to make a modern stealth game has kind of blown my mind. So
Yeah.
this one, I'll see. Massive, I think, has done a good job. I'll give them, you know, their
I
due
mean,
from what they've done. But
I will say I get concerned when I see like frame juddering and stuff in a
hmm
trailer, and I've been seeing a
yeah,
lot of that in this. That doesn't
yeah,
mean that they won't get it fixed at some point, but I think this game is it's
have
gonna
some.
have
I
some
think it's gonna have
jank
some
on
technical issues.
release.
But
Yeah.
to be fair, Jedi
Oh,
Survivor was
Jedi
it?
Survivor was
Oh,
horrible on release.
yeah, it took them
It was
almost a full year, I
broken.
think, to patch it to where it functioned properly and didn't
Yeah.
have super bad technical issues. So we'll be. This one another cautiously optimistic, but this is one that I mean, with all the silly edition, I think that was the other thing. So the activation and then like having a gold edition that's like $120 when you haven't even played the game and it's like pre-order the
Yeah.
$120 version. It's like, well, guys, guess what? It's Ubisoft, so they've been doing that for the last almost decade,
I do think it's
and
funny when people complain about that because it's like this is not
don't
something new.
don't buy it. And guess what?
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed, every Assassin's Creed game, every modern Assassin's Creed game has done the same thing at the same price level. And guess what? I waited and spent like 25 or $30 for the gold edition
Uh,
when it was like a couple months after.
yep,
So you
exactly.
could just
Especially with
yeah.
Ubisoft stuff, a lot of times you can get it way cheap if you just wait a few
Well,
months.
like I said, Prince of Persia, I think it was a $60 game, which I don't think it was a $60 game. Like, I don't think it should have been a $60 game, but it was. And
Yeah, yeah.
it came out this year. It's like 6 months later, and I got it for less than $20. Like, for cheap. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, and you can pick up the Avatar game that also came out. I think, was it February maybe? It came out, I thought it came out either, oh no, maybe it came out at the end of last year. It's like December. You can pick that one up for also like under 30 or so dollars. So if you don't want to buy the gold edition, don't. And then if you keep doing
Yes.
that, then maybe they'll get the picture. But you
Yeah.
can if you want to. And you're not
I
required to.
I
So
think a lot of people feel the need. I know when I first got back into gaming, because I stopped gaming between when I was probably like 15 and 26, I think, is when I
yeah,
started gaming again. I remember seeing these like Ultimate Editions and everything, and I always bought the Ultimate Edition because I was like, oh, well, I want to get the definitive
with
experience.
everything, with all the content,
Yeah,
right?
I don't
Yeah.
want to feel like I'm missing out on something.
Yeah,
And
but then
as
you found out
I've,
that it wasn't actual. It was just some
well, especially with
cosmetics
some of
or
them where it's like the Ultimate Edition gets you basically nothing.
yeah,
Like,
it's
you're spending extra money to be able to change your jacket.
yeah, and I think that's the I came to that realization and real years ago where I was just like, no, it's not worth it anymore. Like
Yeah,
that's
I'll
not,
do
and
it
you
for
can
some things, but not for
yeah,
everything.
but yeah, I mean it's to the consumer. Speak with your wallet. If you don't want it,
Yeah.
don't buy it and don't
Yeah,
feel
stop
obligated.
supporting it.
So
I
so
saw
I
there was a
yeah
study that showed that 82% of people
yes the had
admitted
bought
to
microtransactions, right?
microtransactions. And it's like everybody wants to complain about it, but that number shows me that most of the people on Twitter complaining about microtransactions are paying into that system.
Exactly,
So
and
it's
so
like, okay, well, complain all you want on Twitter. It's not going to change anything because they
yeah
don't care what you say on Twitter.
yeah it's
They
what
care
it's
about
what you're
whether or
actually
not their
doing.
bank account is growing.
Yeah, and if you're buying, whatever colored jackets for the main character,
Yeah,
then they're gonna
it's
keep doing
done.
it. So yeah. Anyways,
Done.
but
Yeah.
yeah, so that was the only other one I wanted to talk about. But do we want to wrap it up for the episode? And yeah,
Well, I mean, we were gonna talk about backlog stuff.
did you want to
Unless
still
you
talk
gotta
about?
go. I mean,
Yeah,
I understand if
I
it's
gotta sign
getting
off,
late.
but we can
Yeah,
talk
no
about that. I think
worries.
that could be a main topic for our next episode for
Yeah,
everyone.
sure, sure.
Because there's a lot to go there, and it's yeah we'll be able to dive into
Yes.
that pretty
I
well.
mean, it's
So
it's a pretty big subject.
yes,
So,
so
okay, well, thanks everybody for joining us.
yeah,
Um, if you leave comments on this video, we're obviously just getting started. We'll try and respond to as many of you as possible. And if we really like your comment, we might actually bring it up in our next episode. So
yeah, and
just
we're always happy for a like or subscribe.
yep, absolutely. Okay,
All
bye.
right, peace out.